Today we're going to be taking a first look and a first ride at a bike that has interested me for a very long time. And it's one that many of you will recognize, and I'm sure many of you won't. But it is right here, the Jones LWB. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about this bike, and then I'll go take it on a first ride, give my impressions, and let you know the things that I am interested in finding out about this bike as I ride it, and the things that I look forward to or I'm worried about. So let's stop wasting time and get into it. Many people will have heard, probably more than know about the bike, will know about these bars. I've recently done a review on this and another video on converting a Salsa Cutthroat to using flat bars, specifically Jones bars, but there are whole bikes. That's really where it started. So this is the LWB, stands for long wheelbase. And I don't know if you could tell, but it is a very long wheelbase. Normally when I make these videos, I talk a lot more about the geometry, but there's more information on those. Jones doesn't actually publish a whole lot on there, but I will tell you, they do have some of the key geometry numbers in there that you might find interesting. Reach and stack are not one of those, but it's a very short reach and a tall stack. That's all you need to know. So, head tube angle on the LWB is 67.5 degrees, and it has a huge offset on the fork. It's a 3-inch or 70 something millimeter. Most, mountain bikes, especially like on a suspension fork, for a long time it was a 51 millimeter offset. A lot of them have moved to 44 now. So they've shortened, and this has a much larger offset than those. And then at the same time, back here on the back, the chainstay is really long. This is the longest chainstay I've ever run, which I've ridden so many fat bikes, but this is a 483 chainstay. So 19 inches, very long, but you've also got a pretty slack seat tube. It's 71 degree effective. There's a slight bend in it, so the effective is where it ends up factoring that bend out of it. You are still positioned back over this long chainstay, so you should be able to have plenty of weight back there, because typically as you move that farther back, you might lose some of the weight on there, and you end up with a very front bias, especially with such a short reach on this. So I typically ride a large in most bikes, but in talking with Jeff and looking at their sizing charts, this is a medium. There's only 3 sizes, no extra larges out there, and a large would just be too big. I could technically ride it, but the medium is a much better fit. I'm excited to give this a try. It's got 29 plus tires. It's running the V-Tire T Fatties. Never ridden those before, in a 29x3. 50 millimeter wide rims, all stuff that I love. It's got Magura hydraulic disc brakes with a huge for me, I guess it's funny to say that. It's a 203 millimeter rotor on the front and a 180 in the rear, which you might think that's weird. It's a rigid bike, but it's got big tires. I'm gonna do a route today that is a mix of double track that's green rated, some blue rated single track that has some kind of spicy stuff in it. I'm going to take this out, try and get a good mix of trails in for first impressions, see what it rides like. If you want a comfortable bike, I guess first thing I can say is this is extremely comfortable. I've ridden 20 yards and it's like super comfortable. You're just super upright. Your hands are right here. You're basically just using them to steer. You need barely any weight on that front fork, and it's just goes, I don't know, it's weird. I'm sitting pretty much vertical. Super interesting positioning. One thing I really appreciate about a taller stack is seems to make it easier to keep your chest up and more open, and makes it a little easier to breathe on harder climbs, harder efforts. Also, this long rear end keeps that front end really planted. Got a lot of weight on the front. Yeah, I mean, it's still far enough out there with that head tube angle and the offset on the fork, but yeah, it's not like, yeah, you can lift it, but it's it doesn't come up as easily as some more modern bikes out there. Didn't mention is the drivetrain. So it's running a box 2 9-speed. The cassette is actually a box 3. You can kind of see it right there. But it's a 10 or 11 to 50 tooth. And then up front, we've got a 30 tooth chainring. So this is very much a mountain bike setup, which that's fine, works great. I think that if you are gonna wanna do gravel stuff, this immediately, I'm like, oh, need a bigger chainring up front. But it's not a big deal though. This is, you know, a pretty good all-around drivetrain. You'll just probably spin out. Get a little downhill right here. Again, I wish there was a dropper, but it's a very narrow seat post diameter. Ooh, my brakes are not bedded. Even with those big rotors, not getting the whole lot. Whew. Don't even remember what I was saying. Okay, it took me a minute. I remembered what I was saying. The seat tube is super narrow. So your seat post, 27.2. There aren't a whole lot of options out there for droppers if that's one thing you're interested in. There's also no internal routing. I don't know that that matters though, because I don't think there's too many, if any, internally routed 27.2 droppers. They're out there though. You can throw them on here. I prefer external routing for basically everything anyway. So I don't know. Depending on how long I end up keeping this, maybe I'll have to bring one in and throw it on here. I basically got all climb for the most part on the way up and this first half of the route. But I've had to adjust the seat post a few times. Thought it felt comfortable, but it's part of the fitment. Just having to raise it a little more every once in a while to get a comfortable position on my legs. Part of that might be getting used to such a slack seat tube angle. Because again, 71 degrees, that's, you know, the standard for mountain bikes a long time ago was like, oh yeah, it was always a 70 degree head tube angle and a 73 degree seat tube angle. This is even slacker than that. It doesn't feel bad though. It's just a little bit different. And again, I think it's necessary in order to keep some of that weight on the back tire with the long chain stays. All right, let's get some downhill, especially because it's getting a little darker. It's amazing how early it gets dark now. I haven't hit a whole lot of bumpy stuff, but even the little washboards I was riding over and stuff, the bike is very, it absorbs a lot of that. Despite no suspension, I think it's a combination of the plus tires, the steel frame, and even probably just such a long wheelbase, it doesn't get jarred as much. All right, now we get a little bit of faster stuff. Let's see how we do. It's also kind of sandy, so again, another point to those 29 plus tires. It's interesting. I mean, it's not hard to jump it. Yeah, like super easy. Whew. Man, I need these big brakes to bed. It's nice, comfortable to stand up and start pedaling to attack it. That was something I noticed even on the cutthroat. It's part of these bars with your hands back so far. Gives you a really comfortable standing position. Your hands are closer to your body than on a lot of flat bars and things, especially if you have a long reach. Ah, these brakes are throwing me off. Woo. There we go. They're bedding. There we go. Wow. Yeah. It is remarkably comfortable over some of that bumpy stuff. It's not nearly as hard or jarring as on a you know, like a normal mountain bike tire or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it definitely wants to hold its line. That's normal with 29 plus. This, I feel it a little more It really wants to maintain that straight line though. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I guess it is at high speed and twisty stuff, making sudden turns. Oh, pedal strike. That was my fault, but that surprised me still. Okay, I'm feeling the rigidness now. Dropping my tire pressure would help a little on that. These trails are ridden a lot by motorcycles, so you get a lot of whoops and basically brake bumps in them. I don't think they're from braking though. I actually think it's from accelerating. They just get so much power they dig in. Woo. Yeah, dropper would help a lot on this stuff. Woo. Yeah, those tighter turns are a little difficult. It's harder to just get the whole bike around because it's long. What's interesting though is I'm pretty sure this isn't a whole lot longer than like a fat bike wheelbase wise, but the back end is just so much longer. Makes it super stable, but maneuverability, you can feel it a little. Oh goodness. I feel very forward on the bike, but again, dropper post, it's gonna make a huge difference for you. This stuff is fun though. Woo! Okay. Whew. All right, so let's talk first impressions. I mean, I talked a lot on the ride, but it is a very different feeling position. Like your body position is a little bit different. Not necessarily bad. Some people won't like that, but I think a lot of people will. I'm still a little torn on how much I like it. I think a lot of that though is going to depend on what you're riding. My first impression would be this would be a very good quiver killer type of bike. Say you only want one bike, you want to ride it on the road, you want to ride it on dirt roads like a gravel bike, bike packing, that kind of thing, and you want to be able to hit some trails, and more so than a lot of the drop bar mountain bikes out there. This I would hands down pick over a bunch of those. It's more capable, it's more comfortable, it's more fun, the positioning feels better. It has more of a mountain bike feel than many of those. Of course, I love the 29 plus tires, always gonna love those. The build is actually really solid. That's one thing that I've noticed in the videos. Jeff has lots of videos on his bikes and on his components and why he picks the things that he does every time he comes out with a new version. So when this one came out, he looks at literally every single part and talks about the part, why he picked it. He talks about the Box 2 drivetrain, why he picked that, his experience with it. Things like, you know, it has a thicker chain, less likely to break, things like that. I think it just shows, you know, there was some thought that went into this. It wasn't all just about a price point. Even the Jones branded stuff, like the stem right here or the cranks, like those aren't just things that you would find on Amazon. They're higher quality than that. They look better than that. So I'm excited to take this bike on some more rides. Hopefully winter kind of holds out. We don't have any snow right now. We're supposed to maybe get some this week, but I'm hoping it holds off so that I can really take this out, try it in more places. Although there's always somewhere I can kind of go that might have some snow, but 29 plus will do just fine. Hopefully you enjoyed this first look at the Jones LWB. It's a bike that I think a lot of people are interested in, but not everyone knows how to approach it or what the real consensus is on it. So hopefully I can provide that. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see that video. And let me know what you think of this bike down in the comments. This or the SWB, the shorter wheelbase, if you've had that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.